Morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Introduction to Google Search Console, Optimizing Your Website for Search Engines. My name is Chandler Walker. I'm the Marketing Campaign Specialist here at RealWork Labs, and I'll be co-hosting today's session. Throughout today's webinar, we'll be hearing from our host, David, who'll be sharing his knowledge on search and Google Search Console. During today's webinar, please feel free to ask any questions. We want to make sure that this session is as interactive as possible. So feel free to add in any thoughts you have, and we will also have an allotted 15 minutes towards the end to ask any additional questions. Before we get started, I do want to remind you all that this webinar will be recorded. So if you miss anything or want to go back to anything, the webinar recording and the slides will be sent to you at the end of the day. So thank you for joining us. And without further ado, let me introduce David. David is a seasoned SEO specialist here at RealWork Labs. He is our technical SEO strategist and has over 25 years of experience. He has, meaning with 25 years of experience, he has started before Google was even a concept and before this term SEO was even coined. He has worked for small and large companies, and he has knowledge with working and teaching SEO. He is a huge asset here at RealWork Labs and someone I'm glad to call a friend. So now I'll hand it off to David for the rest of the webinar.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of what I hope will be a series of many more SEO-focused webinars. I'm really excited to be here and to be able to share knowledge with you. Google Search Console is an incredibly powerful tool, and it's the first step to any optimization that you're going to do on your site. Before you optimize your site, you obviously need to know how it's performing, where any trouble spots are, and this is the tool that provides that. And I really want to empower you so that you're comfortable navigating within it, so you can check your site's health. So you can check the performance and progress regularly and have a good idea of how it's doing, what's going well, what may need work, not only for your own self and for your own knowledge, but also to keep your SEO company honest. Quick thanks to one of our customers, StashLuck Plumbing and HVAC in New Jersey, for letting us demo their Google Search Console for this webinar. There's an awful lot to cover today because Google Search Console has grown and expanded over the years, and there's a lot in there now. That's the good news. The bad news is that there's no way to cover everything in GSC, Google Search Console, in an hour. So here's the plan for today. Let me share my screen real quick and get to the agenda. Sorry about that. Everyone can see my screen? Okay. So before we dive into GSC itself, I think it's really important to understand some search basics, how search engines work, how people search. It will make GSC a lot easier to understand and use. After that, I'll briefly go over the big picture, what GSC is, where the data comes from, what you can do with it, before we take a tour of all of the tools and capabilities in it. From there, we'll jump in and go through each section's tools and reports, some in great depth and some more briefly. The ones that are most important to home service businesses and their websites, like performance and indexing, we're going to look at in much more detail. These are the ones that are really important to keep up with for the performance and health of your site. I will spend time on the other sections and tools. I'll share more about what each one is, when and why you use it, etc., but just a little bit more quickly probably. And hopefully there will be time at the end for questions. I'm going to do my best. There's a lot to cover though, so I apologize if I'm going quickly through it. Again, feel free to watch this later, and there's an appendix at the end of the slides also with links to lots of good documentation and other resources that should be helpful. So quick overview, how people search, how search engines work and how people search. The first thing that happens for a search engine, the way they get all of this in there is they crawl and visit pages on the internet by following links. That's basically it. Sorry, 1 second. So they crawl links both within the site and to and from other sites. And they do this all day, every day. That's all that they do. The next step is executing and parsing those pages. So Google downloads the code of that page and they render that code and see what you and I see on the page, the words, the images, the links, everything. And next, all of those words, links, its relationship to the larger site, everything about the page and literally a trillion other pages are noted, recorded, and socked away in the Google search index. It's very similar to the old card catalog system in the library, just a lot more powerful and a lot more information. All of this is done so that Google and the search engines have the information that's necessary to match a search query with pages that are relevant and match that informational need. Let's talk about that side of search now. So on the search side, someone does a search by typing or speaking their search using words. It might be a single word or a fully formed query or anywhere in between. Understanding the intent behind that search is the first thorny problem that the search engines face when trying to match that need. And it's a challenge that's going to continue for many, many years. They've been at it for 75 years at least and still working on it. Once the search engine has an idea of the intent behind the search query, or many possible intents actually, they retrieve from their index, their card catalog, their virtual catalog, all of the pages that match the criteria of that query. Just anything that matches, the first step is getting it there. But because they have a gajillion of pages that match what people are looking for, they have to sort and order those results, especially when the search could mean many different things. And especially because we all search very differently. I might regularly look for images while you look for information. My food searches personally likely indicate that I'm hungry and need to order some takeout. But your food searches might mean that you're looking for a recipe. So Google is taking all of this into account when they are returning the results in the search engine result page. Let's look at that. So this is a standard search engine results page, or as you might hear it called by SEO folks, the SERPs. That's all it stands for. It's very busy. This is a kind of a standard informational search results page, and it contains lots of search modules that you're pretty familiar with already. There are ads on the page, links to local places with maps, the people also ask section, carousels of news, video, pictures, products, etc. It's a really busy search results page. Here's a more typical page for home service type of searches. It's a lot less busy. And what you'll see is not only is it busy, it contains fewer modules as well. It's mostly paid listings, organic search results, and then the all-important 3-pack, the local listings, the 3 with the map. Now, how people search. Again, really quickly. This is really big though, and important to understand. It's for our purposes though, we're mostly concerned with how the searches that are occurring on Google search itself and on Google Maps. People use tons of different devices for search. Their laptop or desktop, tablet, the home assistant devices, and they're inputting their search query in lots of different ways, whether it's by voice or typing it or using a pen. These actually provide additional clues to the intent of your search, as you'll see in a second. Think about a search for something like fried chicken. Think about the difference between that same search, fried chicken, but one searched from home on a desktop computer at 3 in the afternoon, and the other search from a car at 5 p.m. while the specific individual results that come on the search results page might be similar, the order that you'll see them in will be very, very different. The first one, done from home at 3 in the afternoon, that's going to be heavier on recipes. The second one, done at 5 o'clock from my mobile phone, is going to prominently feature takeout options and restaurants that are near me. But because the search engines don't know what I'm looking for, they're going to show both. The same search query can produce different results based on the context that it's done in. Conversely, you can also have many different search queries that are all very different that yield the same results. Not only people are searching different times and different locations. Again, just like the search for the fried chicken at 3 or at 5 from my home or from my car. And let's talk about how people search with the actual words that they're using. Some people are going to use the name of a place. They're going to use the zip code, the county, the metro area. They might use near me, or sometimes even nothing, and just use the town that they live in. Not even the town that they live in. They'll just search for what they're searching for and assume Google knows that they're looking for something local, and they do. Some might use the word plumber. Some might use plumber, plumbing contractor, plumbing company, or tons of other variations. Some will search for specific plumbing services. This is why it's so important to pay attention to all of this, because the very individual things that people search for, where they search for it, how they search for it, all will make a difference. And we're going to come to that in a quick second. I couldn't resist including this photo. This perfectly epitomizes the intersection of how search engines work and how people search. Near me was such a popular addition to search terms that people were searching for, that business owners literally added it to the name of their business. But those days are gone, and this honestly will not work anymore. So don't change the name of your business. Now that we have a basic understanding of how search works, how people search, let's get into the actual search console. So when you go to the search console, this is the opening screen that you'll see. I broke it up on this screen to illustrate a couple of points. On the left, you'll see the navigational shortcuts, and on the right, you'll see the content of those shortcuts. I do want to quickly point out on the left here that you can see, just to avoid any confusion, there are a few different versions of the shortcuts on the left. I don't know which ones you might see in your search console. They're largely the same, but a little bit different. And that's, I think, due to different access permissions that you have on the account. So again, it's largely the same. If you hunt around, most of the links should be there. Also, as you can see on the bottom, the enhancement section is very different from these two different properties. We're not going to go much into enhancements today because it's very particular to individual sites and what the site is utilizing, not the ones that are available. The most important ones to home service businesses that we're going to cover now are the ones that we're going to be spending the most time on. On the right-hand side of the opening screen are basically just shortcuts to things on the left also. You'll see going through on the right, you will see, this one's important. You might miss it. That little bell icon on the top right is where messages or alerts will live. Do pay attention to those. They're often it's just, hey, here's how you performed last month, but sometimes they're alerting you to an actual problem on the website, and that's important to pay attention to and get ahead of. You also might miss this because they don't call it out too much. This is their insight section. If you click on that, you'll see Google Search Console has kind of pre-prepared insights about the site, how it's doing. You got this many clicks, it's a record for the month, or you hit this milestone, etc. Just be sure to check those somewhat regularly. Next, you'll see the performance section. We're going to go into that in depth in a few. This is how the site is performing in search results. Next section, indexing. This is about how Google is getting around on your site, the pages that they're crawling and visiting, the pages that they're putting in their index, and the ones, just as importantly, that they're not. The experience section, next, is actually being phased out. We'll talk about this in a few minutes. It was just announced by Google a few days ago that they're phasing out not only from Google Search Console some of these sections, but also from the way they look at pages. And this is important. It's good news, I think, for our type of businesses, because they're largely very technical fixes that need to be done. And I think they're beyond most people, including myself, a lot of them. So I'm glad that they're doing that. Next section is the enhancement section. Again, this is about the enhancements that you're using on your site for things like schema tags or structured data. We're not going to go into it too much, again, because it's very technical, and also because every site is so different. Let's get to the main course, the performance section. So this is what you'll see when you click on the performance link on the left, or the shortcut that was on the overview screen. Now, an important note that I want to share with you. These metrics that we're looking at are not about what happens and how visitors are acting on your site. It's everything that's happening before. I think there's a question. Let's stop for a second. What's the question?
Our question is, how do you get to this navigation opening screen?
So all you need to do is search for Search Console in Google, and that's the home screen that you'll see when you go in there, as long as you have just one property. If you have more than one property, it might open up to one of those properties kind of randomly, or the first one. But just do a search for Search Console and just follow the link. And you might need to click on Get Started if you haven't been there, but it should be pretty easy if it is installed. If it's not installed or connected to your website, you do need to do that. There's a section at the very end of these slides in the appendix for how to connect your site to Google Search Console. Also, you can just search for it. Google has great documentation on how to do that. Good question. Going back to the main performance section. The metrics that you see here, again, are not about what happens on your site. This is everything that's happening in Google search itself. So the clicks that you see, the impressions, these are on Google search. I just want to make that clear, because they can get very confusing. As soon as someone goes and clicks on your site and sees your site in their browser, this stops all these metrics. This is for before that. From the top, let's look at what's on the screen. The first thing you'll see is the export link. This will export all the data that you see on the bottom. Whether you are looking at the queries or pages or countries, all of that will come in the export together. The next part, it says last updated. This is when Google has last updated these metrics and these numbers in your Search Console. So this says 7 hours ago. This section above the graph is where the filters live. There are several others. We see 2, search type and date. We're going to spend time on this in a few minutes when we work inside Search Console. And I'll share more about those. Really powerful, really important. But they let you narrow your focus for what you want to see on this page. Below that, you see a graph of whatever is clicked on, whichever metrics. There are 4 metrics here: clicks, impressions, average CTR, click-through rate, and average position or rank. Whatever is highlighted will show up on that chart. Below that, you will see these are the dimensions that you can look at this data through. You can look at it through the dimension of the searches, the search queries that people are searching for, the pages that are coming up in search. We can include and exclude all of these things. We're going to get to that in just a second. there's an additional space. I'm sorry, hold on one second. There, that little upside down triangle that's highlighted. These are for additional filters for the data below. One caveat, when you play with the filters up top, that will change the numbers in the graph. When you click on this upside down triangle filters, it's just going to filter the data below, but it's not going to change the numbers above. It's a little tricky. We'll see that in action in a few minutes. Another couple of caveats, there's a limit to what you'll see on the bottom, the data that you're going to see. So for instance, at the very bottom of the page, you'll see 1 through 10 of 1,000 search queries. Google will only show the top 1,000 searches, the top 1,000 pages, etc. There are ways to get around this, and I'll touch on those and share some of those tricks in a little bit. But again, we're just going to see the top 1,000, whatever it is that you're looking at. Number two caveat, the data that you see here is not 100% exact. Google has to obscure some of this for various reasons. So not every single keyword that people searched for will appear here. If you add up the clicks and the impressions over there on the right, it's not going to total the numbers that you see up top. It'll be close, but it's not going to be exact. Again, they're obscuring this for a few reasons, mostly so people don't, reverse engineer their secret magic sauce. Another quick caveat, if you'll note, I did not click on the average CTR and average position up top for this view. Right now, we're looking at the whole site, all the pages, all the search queries. It's not very helpful to see what the average click-through rate and the average rank of every page is at this level. There's so many keywords and so many pages that it's just almost meaningless and worthless to see those numbers, track them, over time. Don't look at those numbers from this level. It's just keywords go in and out, pages go in and out. It's just not very helpful, but it will be when we start digging in. Let's do that actually and go into Search Console itself. You can see my Search Console screen, hopefully. So I'm going to go into Performance. You can click on Full Report here on the right or Performance on the left. It will go to the same place. So sometimes it makes sense to look at the whole site. Other times we're going to want to look at groups or subsets of search queries, of pages, like all blog posts, all searches that have the name of a location in it, all the location pages. And that's where the filters come in up here on top. Some of these might not be possible with your website. It really depends on how your website is organized. So for instance, some sites use subdirectories like /blog and then the name of the blog article, or /service and a page for each one of the services, or /location and all the locations. Those are really great for this purpose. You can look at all of the location pages, blog pages, etc. But some sites don't have it organized that way. The site that we're looking at right now has all the service pages in a /service directory, but the blog posts aren't organized in a directory. They're all in the root of the site after the .com. So we can't look at the performance of just the blog pages. Looking at these search queries here. So the first one is search type. For most people and businesses here, I don't think you'll ever need to change this. We're primarily concerned with how web search is going, not how people are searching for images that might be on our site, or video, or news. So you'll rarely need that. The date filter is very powerful. You can filter for a set time frame, like the last X number of days or months, or from this date to this date. If you use that custom function down below, you can enter in any single date to any single date. Or you can compare. So you might want to compare the last 4 weeks to the 4 weeks before that. But if seasonality is going to affect that, you might want to look at the last 28 days over the same 28 days last year. It all depends on what we're trying to do. If you look at 28 days over the previous period, that'll show you progress and movement in the last 8 weeks total. But if you look at it year over year, you can keep seasonality in mind and see how you've progressed over that time last year. For now, I'm just going to keep it the last 3 months. There are 2 more filters that are super powerful that you should be using pretty regularly. One is query and one is page. So the query is a filter to let me include or exclude certain search queries. So if you click on query, you'll see these choices. Queries containing, not containing, an exact query, like just this exact search term, or custom regex, which is regex stands for regular expressions. It's a really powerful tool to use wildcards and give very exact parameters to a computer for the things that you want it to match. It could be like all odd numbers with pages that have an E in it that end with a G, or anything. It's really, really powerful. Most of the time, you'll likely be using containing or not containing. One of the best uses for this here is to split out the difference between branded search queries and non-branded queries. What I mean by branded is if it has the name of your business in it. This will be easier for some businesses to do than others. If your business name has very common words in it, it's going to be difficult. If we look down below and look at the queries, you'll see that a lot of them have the name of the business in it: StashLuck Plumbing, etc. So it's interesting to me what people are searching for with the name of the business, but if people use the name of the business, then your site should show up anyway. So it's not as interesting. So one of the things that I will do is add a filter for a query, and I want to see queries not containing StashLuck. Now, people will misspell their business name most likely, unless it's super simple. So you can use part of a word. I'm going to just put stash in there because people might not know that it's just a K instead of a CK. And there are no important words that have to do with the services that this business offers with the word stash in it. So I'm going to just use the minimum possible and just say, don't show queries that have the word, part of the word stash in it. So here we'll see, if we go to the bottom, we'll see the queries that don't contain stash in it. And you can see none of these are branded. Now we're starting to really see what people are looking for that doesn't have the name of the business in it. Now that we've excluded those search queries, let's switch the dimension that we're looking at this through and go to pages. So if you look up top, we're looking at web queries in the last 3 months that don't have the letters STASH in the search query. These are those top pages for those conditions. As you can see, you can sort this by clicks or by impressions. They're going to be very different lists depending on which one you're looking at. But I want to show you something that might be interesting for you to do. So I'm going to go through a few use cases and scenarios for things that might be interesting to your own business with regard to your website and improving it. So what I want to show you here is, if you click on queries, again, we're looking at the queries that match these conditions. What I want to show you is what we can do with that. So if you click on export, we have options. We can download to Google Sheets, Excel, or a CSV. I'm going to just use Google Sheets to keep it easy and to keep it all in this browser window. And here they are. It's the same metrics that we saw earlier, just in a spreadsheet format. I'm going to highlight all of those, copy them, and I added a link to this tool in the appendix. There are several tools like this online. This is just one that I found quickly. All you need to do is take that list that we just copied, paste it into here, and click on the count button. You get a nice, pretty word cloud there with all of the biggest words. The biggest word size here corresponds to the how often it was used in these search queries. On the left, you'll see top words. These are the single most used words in all of those search queries that we looked at. Now, just mentally, if you want for now, just group them into buckets. So you see things like repair and installation, the actions, the services that people are looking for. You see things like pump, generator, heater, the things that are being worked on. Then if you go to the middle column, you can see bigrams. Bigrams are 2-word phrases. Trigrams are 3-word phrases, etc. These are interesting. Also, they just give you another view into those words like sump pump, air conditioning. So you're seeing them a little bit more in context. Now, what do you do with these? So number one, look at these and make sure that the ones that are occurring most often, or even the ones that are down in the middle, that you have content on your site that addresses these topics. If you don't, you're not gonna rank for these kinds of searches for long, because they're not gonna find that information. So this is to be aware of just the types of things that people are looking for. It's nothing hugely special, no super secret sauce, but it just gives you another view into the actual words that people are using on not to get to your site, but to see your site in the search results. Now let's keep that filter, and instead of queries, go to pages. And again, if this site had pages organized into different directories, we could look at just one of those, or a few of them even. But for now, we're just going to look at all of them and just look at the top pages. Some things to keep it. Let me add now ranking position and click-through rate. A couple of things I want you to keep in mind. So when we're on pages, this ranking position, again, is not very helpful. So this page, on average, with all the searches where this page showed up, ranked 41.9. It's really meaningless, because it just depends on what people were searching for and how often it was. If they were searching for something that's not really relevant and your page showed up, it doesn't really matter much to you. This will get the position and click-through rate will become important when we start looking at individual search queries. So just because it says 41.9 doesn't mean that this page is ranking 41.9. It means on average for all of the searches. So let's take one of these. Let's take this top one and go into that. Now we'll see that it got 1.59K impressions. If you hover over this, you'll see the exact number, 1585. I don't know if that's showing up for you or not. If it's not exact enough, hover over it and you'll see the specifics. Now, again, this is 3 months. You can see how it's been going in 3 months. You can go down to the bottom, and now, since we're just looking at this page, if you click queries, now what we're looking at, go back up top to the filters, and you can see we're searching the last 3 months, only searches that didn't have the company name in it. And for just this page, we're looking at the queries, search queries where this page showed up for in the search results. So the other thing we can do that's interesting, well, let me pause for a second and just share this. So what this means is, for this search term, sump pump flooding, even though there were no clicks to it, it was searched for 359 times, where this page was in the search results. And on average, it was ranking number 15. Now, that doesn't mean that if we search for this now, it would be number 15. It depends on where you live, where whoever's doing the search, where they live. It depends on not just that, but their search is going to be different from someone else's search. So over this time, it has ranked 15. So just be aware of that. It's not exact. It's not for right now. So if we want, we can add another filter down here, and position. What we can do is say smaller than 10. And what this will do is now show us only those searches where this page showed up, where it ranked in the top 10. If you want, I think it's a lot easier to just click on one of these big numbers here so you can see all of the search terms without going back and forth. Now, let's clear out the filters by just clicking that X. I'm going to close out this search query filter, and let's just do a quick comparison. And let's look at the last 4 weeks over the previous 4 weeks. 28 days to previous 28 days. This will give us a, if it's a Tuesday to Monday, it'll look at previous Tuesday to Monday also, because every day is, of course, very different. Oh, shoot, I just messed that up. Sorry about that. So compare 28 days and apply. Now it's going to get very busy on the bottom because we're looking at all of this information. The solid lines are the last 28 days. The dotted lines are the previous 28 days. You can uncheck some of these to be able to see this a little more clearly. So if you look at it one at a time, it's just a lot easier to digest, and you can see how it's performed comparatively with just one metric there. But if we click on all of these, now what we're going to see here is clicks the last 28 days and the previous 28 days and the difference. This is 4 metrics times 2. It goes all the way, scrolls left and right. Unless you have a very wide monitor, it's going to be very difficult to see this. So only choose these metrics that are important so you don't have to go back and forth. And this is really helpful for seeing how things have gone in the last 2 months. What has gone up, what has gone down, is there a pattern to that, etc. So this is really useful for just keeping an eye on things. Sorry, 1 second, going back to these slides. Okay. So let's go to the next section, indexing. The indexing section of Google Search Console tells us everything that we need to know about how Google is, what Google's coming across on the website, what they think about, what they did with, couldn't do, the pages that it crawled and indexed, that it couldn't crawl, that it didn't want to index, and why. This is a really important section because if you aren't aware of what Google is indexing and not indexing in their index storage, then you don't know why it's not performing well. A page might not, they might have declined to index it and return it in search results, and you need to know that to be able to rectify it. So what we see here on this screen, let's go through it. First, we have, again, our export. We can export all of this data that we see on the page. Again, we can see when it was last updated, but there's another piece of information here, the crawler that they used. Google mostly crawls the web using the equivalent of a smartphone, of a mobile device, because searches have, the majority of searches are done on mobile, and that happened a few years ago. Where it surpassed that. You can see which pages or types of pages you want to see, or all of them or a subset. You can see all known pages, all the pages that you submitted, etc. It's probably best to just keep it on known pages. Below that, you'll see the chart that shows the number of pages that Google has indexed and not indexed. As you can see, there are a lot of pages here not indexed. On the bottom, you'll see all the reasons why they weren't indexed and the groups of pages for each one of those. Now, this isn't all bad. Some of these are, just a FYI. A page like over here, we can see that 106 URLs have a redirect. That means it goes from one URL to another automatically. That's expected probably, and that's okay. They're just letting you know. There are lots of other reasons in here. In the appendix, again, I have a link to some excellent documentation that Google that goes into these reasons and more about each one of them. So we don't have to spend time on that. I definitely encourage you to look at that and to read that. It's really good information. But there is one very important one that I want to call out here for why the pages aren't indexed. As you can see, this group here, crawled, currently not indexed. This means Google has crawled these pages. They've seen them, but for one reason or another, they're saying, we're going to pass on these and not show it in search results. Almost always the pages that are in here that they have crawled, they've seen them, but don't want to put in their index, almost always that has to do with an issue that has to do with quality. It's a very broad label, quality. It means a lot of different things. Let me give you a few examples. Pages that say one thing in the title or the header of the page, but the content doesn't quite reflect that. That's one kind of quality issue. Another one might be this page is very similar, if not almost identical to other pages. A typical example that I see on many home service businesses is location pages that, trying to, kind of pull a fast one. For instance, you might have a page called pest control in some small town. That's the same as pest control in some other small little town name. Except for maybe very slight differences between the two pages. Now, if the two different locations actually have different kinds of pests, for example, one's at the foot of a mountain and the other one's near a swamp, of course, they're going to be different kinds of pests. Mosquitoes will haunt one area and not the other. If that's the case, that's a really good reason to have different pages for these different locations. But when you use the same page with the same content and you're just changing the name of the location and a few other words, it's really not going to fly with Google. This is a whole topic by itself that I think would be great for another webinar in the future. But for now, I'll just keep it at that. If they're very similar like that and they don't need to be and they're not imparting any value to users, Google's going to decline. Another possibility is what's called thin content, not enough information or good information to send people to this page. You might have heard of Google's helpful content algorithm. That's what this addresses also. Google's whole business rides on providing searchers with good results, good pages and sites that answer those searches. If they start failing at that by sending people to bad pages or pages that don't really provide a lot of information, people are going to stop using Google. So you need to really be honest with yourself when you're trying to get a page to rank well or seeing where it ranks for certain search queries. Does it actually deserve to rank well? Is it one of the best pages out there to answer this information need? Just because it's your baby doesn't mean it's the prettiest. I'm sorry, but your job here is to make sure that it is the prettiest. So make sure that, if you can answer honestly, this is one of the best pages out there for people who are searching for this information need. That's what it needs to do. Again, if there are a lot of pages in one of these groups, look for patterns. Are they all location pages? Are they all mostly fluff? Are they all blog posts that don't really talk about what the title says it talks about? Try to find some patterns that you can see. Let me go back for a second and switch to Search Console again, and let's look at this report. Actually, we don't have a lot of time. Hold on one second. I'm going to skip to the next section. Sorry, I want to make sure to get through this. Sitemaps. So aside from letting Google crawl the site, one of the ways to tell them about pages on your site is with a sitemap. This is most important for super large sites with tens, hundreds of thousands, or millions of pages. For small sites, it's not that important, but I want you to be aware of it. This is what a sitemap looks like. It's basically a glorified list of URLs. This is in XML, but you can make a sitemap with in a text file with just a list of URLs. So there is a section in Google Search Console that is about sitemaps. It shows you your sitemaps, how many pages on there are indexed, and if it came across any problems. Page experience. Now, as you can see here, Google, number one, the site doesn't have enough data, but two, there's this notice here that I mentioned earlier. There's not, they're changing the way they look at this. So I'm actually going to skip this section because it's becoming less important. But what I do want to share with you is one part, the core web vitals. So core web vitals are metrics that Google uses to measure the experience that people are having on your site. And as you can see here, it shows you, bad, okay, and good. Fortunately, all of these are either good or okay. Keep an eye on this. Click on each one of those reports to see what is a problem. So if you click on that, you'll see a page like this, and it goes down into the bottom. It shows you the pages that need improvement or that are poor. Look for patterns. Share this with your website company and or SEO company, and get them to address it for sure, especially if it's an important page. Mobile usability is also going to the wayside. So this just happened. So I'm going to skip this for now. URL inspection and submission, I want to share with you. Anytime you want to see something about a URL, you can click on this bar here, type it in or paste it in here, or you can always go down to the bottom. And anytime you see a page in the data on the bottom, you will see, as you hover over a link, you'll see a copy, go to that page, or this magnifying glass to inspect that URL. This is good for if you're trying to see what the problem is with a page. If you click on that, it will give you more information. Removals. You shouldn't need this very often, but I just want to share with you what it is. If you temporarily need to remove a page from Google's index for whatever reason, this is the place to do it. This is not the place to, because you don't want people to go to this page because you don't like it or there's a better one. This is to remove it temporarily from Google's index. The next thing that I want to share with you, I apologize, I'm going really fast because there's so much to cover. Two more sections that you shouldn't need very often, but it's very important to go to if you suffer some kind of precipitous drop in traffic. Manual actions are those that a real person at Google, usually after reviewing an automatic flag or a submission of a complaint, has checked out and manually applied a penalty to a page or to the site. The other reason why traffic might completely tank is a security issue. So make sure to go there. Thankfully, this says no security issue, but this is for things like if your site has been hacked, or if you host downloadable content that's been flagged as malicious or suspicious, it will appear here. Next is links. And they split up the page. On the left is external links from other websites. On the right is internal from within your own website. There are a few important things here that I want to call out. If we go to external links, click on more. So these are the pages that are getting those links. There are a total of 272 of them, as you can see here. If we go back and click on top linking sites, you will see yellowpages.com, for instance. There are 89 links from Yellow Pages to this site. This is also really good to keep track of, especially if you're trying to build links on your page. Now, internal links are also really important. It doesn't sound like it is, but it is. So just like Google looks at external links pointing to your site to measure how important the site is and how good it is, they look to you and your internal links for clues as to the pages that you think are important on your site. So this page is linked to the most. Google's going to give it extra weight. So look at these numbers over here on the right and make sure that this is, kind of jiving with what you think are the most important pages. Obviously, the home page is one of the most important, but if you're trying to give a little boost to one of your new pages, put a link to it in as many places as possible. That will help Google see that you consider it important. Couple more and then we're done. So settings, there are a couple things you would want to know about: users and permissions. This is where you would go to add a user. And I added links in the appendix for what the different levels of permissions are to give people. Associations, this is an opportunity for you to link your Google Analytics account with Search Console. Change of address, if you're moving domain names, you're moving your site to another domain name, that's what that's for. Now, this is a weird one, crawl stats. I don't know why it's here. It belongs in a different section, but if you click on open report, this shows you how Google is crawling your site over time. This is how many individual URLs they crawled, how much space, how many, how big the pages were, the amount of that they downloaded to look at those pages, and the response time from where your site is hosted. You don't want it to be very high. You don't want it to be spiky either. If you see this going up slowly over time, definitely need to talk to your web folks about why it's getting slower. And then down here, you can see all the different dimensions here by file, the different files that are on your site, the different responses. So, 200 means okay, success, they got the page, or a redirect, or not found, etc. Keep an eye on these just to see and make sure everything is okay, and a whole bunch more areas there for you to divide up that crawl. Let's go real quick back to the slide. What I want to show you is the index. I apologize for not being better with time. I added a section here on the top for that external tool that I use for the words. I added something here about Google Trends. It's a great place to go see, is this something with your site that's wrong because traffic is going down, or are the searches for this kind of thing going down? It's really important to look at. And then a whole bunch of links to specific areas of Google documentation that are really helpful. Google's great with their documentation. And then lastly, there's a page on there for setting up Google Search Console. Again, apologies. Now let's open it up for any questions that there might be, and I'll try to answer them quickly.
Thank you, David. Now, if anyone has any questions, please submit them in the Q&A button.
Did any come through while we were talking?
No, I think we just had one.
Okay.
Looks like we have another one right now. How do I get access to the links in the appendix?
So we will send out the slides with the link to the recording, and it'll just be the last couple of slides. Good questions. I didn't make that clear. And I'd love to hear from you if about this presentation. Was it too much information? Was it too advanced? Did I dumb it down too much? Are there specific topics that would be helpful to spend a whole hour on more specifically within Google Search Console or outside of Google Search Console? I plan on doing this pretty regularly. Again, it's really important to me that this knowledge is shared and that you have it. Again, keep your SEO company honest, keep your web company honest, and you should know how your own site is doing. So whatever you need to know, I would love to hear.
It looks like we have another question. Can we share this with our web developer?
The presentation? Sure, that should be fine.
The next question is, what do you think is the most important data to keep an eye on for SERP?
So what I would look at, that's a great question, and I think this is another a topic for a whole other discussion, is search queries where you're ranking well, but not getting as many clicks as maybe you should. So compare a search query at this ranking, let's say number 3, with another search, with all the other search queries that rank around number 3. How's the click-through rate on that? Is it on the bottom or is it on the top? Look at the ones that, for all the search queries at this rank, look at the bottom of those for the click-through rate, because if it's not getting clicked on, it's going to disappear. If it's irrelevant, let it go. But if it's a good search query and you're ranking pretty well and just not getting the clicks, what could you do to get those clicks? Change the description tag. That doesn't affect the rank, but it can compel users to click on it and be more, it could spark their interest basically in the page. Experiment with the title of the page to make it more clear what people will find on the page. I think that's a great topic for a whole discussion. These kinds of things, what to look at very regularly and what to do about them. Are there any other questions?
Yes, our next question is, what are questions I can ask my SEO company to keep them honest?
Another good topic. What I would do is look through the Search Console yourself, make some notes, look at what is doing well versus what's not doing well. If there are search queries or pages that aren't performing as well as they should, or compared to others in the list aren't performing very well, why not? What can be done to get more traffic to those pages? Does it have the right information on the pages? What could it be augmented with? What other information could be added to that page to make it better, to cover the topic more? Why has this declined in performance is a good question to ask. Or what could we do to improve the performance of this page or this search query? But again, I think that's a really good question, and that is a perfect topic for another discussion.
Our next question is, how much has the average price per click for, price per click for home improvement gone up?
That's a good question. I really don't know much about paid search, to be honest with you. I don't know the range of prices even that different regions have, or I really don't know much about paid search. It's a whole separate thing. It's a whole separate discipline with different activities and metrics and just specialty. So I apologize, I can't answer that one.
Our next question is the Google My Business page different from the Google Search Console?
Yes, so this is that's a really good question. When someone does a search for, let's say, plumber, Austin, Texas, and you show up there both in the regular search results and in the local Google Business Profile section, you're going to see that impression count when you log into your Google Business Profile and in Search Console. Search Console is showing you the regular search links. Google Business Profile is showing you that little local section. So you'll probably, there's definitely going to be some overlap, because that search query will probably show your business in both of those places. It's rare to see just in one and not the other if you're in the GBP little 3-pack there. Then almost always you're going to see it in the regular results. So they both do cover different things, but there's some overlap in terms of the metrics and seeing how you're performing there.
Our next question is, what is the best resource on how to fix a CLS issue on mobile?
Cumulative layout shift, I think you're talking about. That's a really good technical question. That's a web development task that needs to be done. So whoever's doing, if you have someone who's helping you with your website, perfect question to ask them. If you don't, that's a very big question that could go in many, many different places depending on how the page is coded. That's not something that can be answered very easily, unfortunately. It just depends on the very particulars of your page.
The next question is, would this be a great way to monitor the company that manages your marketing?
If they're doing organic search, yes, you should be seeing things improve and go up, whether, not necessarily all queries, or, just because the number of impressions go down, that doesn't mean that things aren't performing well. There could be a good reason why the number of impressions are going down. Perhaps you were getting a lot of impressions for irrelevant searches. You don't care about those. Just because you have a lot of them doesn't mean much. So don't pay too much attention just to the line moving up and to the right or down and to the right. You have to really dig in and see what it is that's moving up or down. So I definitely encourage you to play around. Hopefully you got something from this today, that you have at least a few things to go check out and shine a light or magnifying glass on more specifically. But play around with it, explore those search queries that are showing up, and see where it's going, and see which pages are moving up and down.
Next question is, how often should I look at my GSE metrics?
If everything's going swimmingly, I think you can get away with once a week or once every 2 weeks. If you've had problems in the past, then you might need to look at it every day. I certainly, being in charge of SEO for different companies, I certainly was looking at that every day. Not only just the basics, but how are my top pages doing? How are my top searches doing? Has any one of those gone up or down? And why? Perhaps it's ranking for new pages, but it's not getting enough clicks. So I want to encourage that. Perhaps it's starting to falter for certain search queries of a certain type, or a million different scenarios. I would start by at least once a week going around to it, but finding those things that are important to you and your business, like these search queries, these pages, and bookmark that and check those every day. The longer if something happens, the longer it goes, the more damage that it could cause. So the faster that you can catch something, the better. Now, if you see something go down one day, it doesn't mean the sky is falling. It could just be a dip in demand. If it's a heavy news day or a holiday, or the weather is gorgeous, people might just be outside. It very much depends on seasonality, your specific kind of business. So don't take too much, don't put too much stock in one day's worth of data. But if you see something go down one day, definitely check it the next day. Also keep in mind, Google has a delay of about 48 hours on Search Console metrics. So the latest date that you'll see in Search Console is usually 2 days ago.
The next question is, if our SEO company doesn't allow us to access to my Google business page, can we access this Search Console?
There's something wrong if your companies aren't letting you access to these tools. Google Search Console and Google My Business both are, there's a lot of stuff in there that not just performance metrics, but administrative things that you should be in control over as well. I would say that that's a red flag if you're not getting access. There's no reason why you shouldn't get access to your own data. That is, I would ask why, and that you've heard that that's unusual to not get access to your own data. That's definitely a red flag. That's a great topic for another webinar, red flags and what to do about each one.
And I think those are all the questions we have right now. So I appreciate you all coming and joining us today for our webinar. And we'll probably have a few more later this year. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And great ideas. I have a bunch of things that I would love to discuss for the next ones. Great ideas. Thank you for all your questions. I apologize if we couldn't get to all of them. If I went really fast, I'll try to time it better next time. Thank you.